All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Ephraim. Today's date is November 13th, 2022. And if you're listening to the sound of my voice, that means you were blessed to see another day. And for that, all praise, honor, and glory is due to the Most High God of Israel for now and forever. All right, welcome to all my new subscribers. Welcome to all my new supporters. I appreciate the liking of the videos, the comments, the positive ones. Listen, I get it. In this day of internet age and social media, people can be, just as nasty and negative as they want to be behind their phone or computer screen. I get it, but I'm doing all I can to try to enlighten, inspire, and uplift our people. You understand what I'm saying? And it really gets on my nerve. It bothers me when people come to the channel and a video and just spit something negative. I mean, really, just keeping it 100, it pisses me off because, here I am doing my best to uplift our people, to inspire our people. And let me just say this, man. I'm gonna keep it pushing. If you don't have nothing positive to say or admit to a video or presentation, stay off my channel, man. Like real talk, because I don't got time for it. I really don't. I'm older. You can say I'm cranky, whatever, but I don't have time for it, man. If you don't have nothing positive to say to help us and help me help lift our people up and inspire our people or whatever, keep your comments to yourself, man. Real talk. Stay off my channel if you on negativity because I'm not on that time, man. Real talk. I'm trying to be positive and uplift our people. You understand? There's a lot of new brothers and sisters waking up now because of the Kyrie situation, and that's good. That's a blessing. You know what I'm saying? So I have to, say things in a way that's approaching to them, that I'm approaching them who have no idea really what this is all about in terms of us being, Israelites and this and that, whatever the case may be. So if you've been in the truth for a while or whatever the case may be, if I post something, have you seen it? Okay, keep it to yourself. I don't care if you've seen it. There's a whole lot about people that have not seen it. You understand what I'm saying? Think about them, not yourself, man, and keep your negative comments to yourself. Because I'm telling y'all right now, I'm not here for it, man. I'm not trying to hear that. If you can't be positive with us on the channel and help me uplift our people, stay off my channel. All right, that's all I got to say about that. This interview I'm gonna let y'all check out is from the brother the Igbo Israelite brother Remy Yona. This is a really nice interview. I think y'all would get some stuff from it or whatever the case may be. And I want y'all to check this out. All right, until next time, let's talk to you from signing off. Shalom, elect.
Today is Tisha B'Av, the day that saw the fall of the first temple and the destruction of Jerusalem at that time, and then the second temple, of course, and the many expulsions from England, from Spain, the Rhineland massacres, and all those different periods of persecution, culminating, of course, in the genocide that we know of as the Shoah. And it's appropriate, maybe, that today of all days, in our series on African Jewish lives, that we turn to Nigeria. Because as we think of the tragedies of our history, we should note the parallels in the lives of the Igbo. Because theirs, like ours, is a story of rejection, of suffering, of humiliation, of violence, massacre, and genocide. The term Igbo could linguistically be linked to the Hebrew Ivri. Of course, Ivri is not a Hebrew word. It was a word that was common throughout the Middle East to indicate a stranger, an outsider. And indeed, that's the way both communities have been seen. But if we go back into ancient history, were the Igbo and the Hebrews one nation? Did they, and do they still, have a common heritage and culture? After mass conversion to Christianity under British imperialism, many are now shrugging off those Christian trappings and continuing with the ancient culture. Others are returning to Judaism and forming synagogues, and I will shortly show you a short video clip. But first of all, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, who is Dr. Remy Iloma. He practiced law for many years in Nigeria before coming to the United States, where he has an MA from the Florida International University in Miami and is currently at the University of California, Riverside, both studying and teaching. He's the author of 18 books, among which Igbo Republics, an African American history, and the Igbos and Israel, an intercultural study of the largest Israelite diaspora, and Igbos and Abraham's DNA. And he's written on many issues, including Igbophobia, which is indeed anti-Semitism against Igbo. And besides his engagement in research, he's also written a number of novels. He stands at the forefront of the Igbo Renaissance, which has worked for a return of Igbo religion, Omenana, to bring it to the center stage of Igbo society. And the efforts which he's tirelessly contributed to have also made Igbos the fastest growing rabbinic Jewish community in the world. He was the founder of Beit Knesset Siya Israel in Abuja, and is a founding member of a Lauda Equiano Research Institute. So I'm going to just show you a bit of the film, and then I will hand over, as always, to Dr. Malka Shabtai, who will interview Remy, and so that we can all learn as much as we can about this fascinating community. Let me just share my screen.
From deep inside Africa, a sound is emanating that is causing reverberations around the world. It's the sound of Judaism. A sound of the people casting off 2 centuries of colonialism, returning to what they say are their native roots.
I know from birth I'm a Jew. Only I know that my forefather missed the way.
I grew up alongside every other Igbo youth. We kept on hearing that Igbo people came from Israel.
There was a story my mom told me at the age of 6 years. I never forget. He said, the Igbos are Jews.
And it's the story of one man, Shemuel, who went searching for what that meant and found answers on the internet, prompting a journey that led him to a community of thousands of Jews. A place where resources are few, but commitment transcends. Through prayer, practice, ritual, diet, and song. But this is also the sound of doubt from Jews in America.
They would ask me, are you from America? Or where? I said, no, I'm a Nigerian. They say, you black? I said, yes. They said, no, it's not true.
And rejection from family and friends.
I am like an outcast among them.
And in this volatile Christian-Muslim
I'm going to stop there. And turn at this point, just to give you a bit of a flavor of it. It looks like a fascinating film. That's a trailer of the film. We have one of the people that you heard there, of course, Remy, and Malka, if you'd like now to take over. And
okay, so good evening, everyone, to those that are with us for the last few weeks and those who are newcomers. this evening we will go as much as we can, as deep as we can, trying to understand the unique story of the Igbos among other Jewish communities in Africa. So, Remy, please tell us, who are the Igbos? Where did they come from? Are they part of the 10 lost tribes, or they are all different other categories? Who are the Igbos, Remy?
Thank you, Malka. Thank you, everybody. Briefly, the Igbos are lineal descendants of the biblical Israelites from the 12 tribes of Israel, not 10, from the 12 tribes of Israel. I have studied the subject for 20 years. I have identified the descendants of all the tribes of Israel in the Igbo people. The Igbo people retained the most ancient identity of the people of Israel. The term we are very familiar with, Hebrew, is the English way of saying Igbo. I have traced the migrations. In fact, the Levites among the Igbos still do what the Levites were commanded to do in the Bible. I know the communities that came from Judah, they still retained Uda in their ancestral names. The communities that come from Zebulun still retain them. So to cap it up again, the Igbos are the linear descendants of those biblical Israelites who still hold on to the Israelite religion. I think this is the most concise explanation of who the Igbos are. Thank you.
Now I heard that there are 15 million Igbos in Nigeria. And then I heard that there are only 60,000 who are actually living as Jews, as Igbo Jews. So can you give us an idea what all these numbers are telling us, in regards to who we are talking about?
Hopefully at the end of this discussion, we will be looking at things from totally different perspectives.
Great.
There are up to 60 million people who are Igbos today, who are scattered all over the world, but who can claim ancestry in Igbo land. These 60 million people are still deeply connected to the Israelite religion called Omenana in the Bible too. In Deuteronomy 6:4, the Lord told the Israelites through Moses, these are the things you will do in the land. This is exactly what you get if you get Omenana. If you translate this to Igbo, and Omenana to the Igbos means things you will do in the land. But after the slave trade wound down, the transatlantic slave trade wound down, Britain marched into Igbo territory, conquered the Igbos after 33 years of war, imposed Christianity on the Igbos, and some Igbos became Christians. So 60,000 to 40 to 60,000 of those people that became Christians have left Christianity and began to adhere to the religion Rabbinic Judaism, which they see as their way back to their ancestral religion of Menana, which is the Israelite religion, which is the religion that gave birth to Judaism.
Great. Now I would like you to help us as much as possible to understand what is the Omenana all about? What Omenana has to do with modern halachic Judaism? Tell us something about whether is the gap, similarities, or differences.
Omenana, the relationship between Omenana and halakhic Judaism is like the relationship between the Roman Catholic Church and the Anglican Church. The Anglican Church is an offshoot of the Roman Catholic Church. Rabbinic Judaism is an offshoot of Omenana. There are lots of similarities, but there are also differences now. I will concentrate on the similarities first. And I will talk about just a few traditions, which, by the way, are very unique to the people of Israel. But because of a gap we have in modern scholarship, people think that those traditions are very common. This circumcision on the 8th day, what Jews call Brit Milah in Hebrew, is uniquely Israelite. Circumcision may have occurred in a lot of places, but circumcision on the 8th day is uniquely Israelite. And I understand that circumcision on the 8th day is taken very seriously in the Jewish community. Apart, maybe outside Ethiopia, the Igbo people are the only people in Africa that systematically circumcise their males on the 8th day. There is no other place in Africa it happened. I stand to be challenged. Seclusion of women after childbirth, omugwo, that's the term in Igbo language, because to the Igbos, a woman who just gave birth is viewed as a woman having her monthly menstrual flow. I understand that Judaism has this also.
Nida.
Nida. Then the mourning. I understand that the Jewish people sit Shiva for 7 days. It is 7 days among the Igbos. And after the 7 days, on the 30th day, Igbos will perform what is called Izozu. I understand that this is Shloshim to the Jewish people. I can reel off hundreds of acute similarities. But then, because Judaism has left that culture of Israel and moved away, interacted with other religions and cultures, there are some similarities. I mean, there are some differences. For example, and a typical Igbo does not think that he may not be a polygamist, that he cannot marry 2 wives, because his ancestors, the Israelites, married many wives. But I understand that Rabbinic Judaism has outlawed that. That's one. And another one, significant difference, is that I understand that some members of the Jewish community tolerate cousin-to-cousin marriage. To the Igbos, that will be abomination. And in Leviticus 18, Moses told the people of Israel that thou shalt not have a man or a woman that should not have anything to do with close cousins. I mean, if they are close cousins, they should not cohabit. So, to recap again, both faiths, Omenana and Judaism, coming from the same source, have much in common, much more in common than they have differences. But basically today, there are still some differences because of the experiences of the Jews. They have moved away from the homeland, interacted with other cultures, and we would not be reasonable if we say that we moved to Europe, interacted with a very strong religion like Christianity, moved to the Arab world, interacted with a very strong religion like Islam, and this did not influence Judaism. I will tamp down on this by bringing up a point. There is something that Jews and Igbos believe in. The Jews call it Gilgulim, and the Igbos call it Enowa. That is reincarnation or transmigration. While the average Igbo does not see any sense that this may not be a reality, this is not mainstream in Judaism. Why? Because Jews have had to live in communities that did not believe in such things in Europe. Since Christianity rules out reincarnation completely, it would have been very difficult for Jews to make it mainstream. So I hope I have succeeded in highlighting some similarities and a few differences that exist. Thank you.
Before I will go on, I just want to put up a question, but I will keep it, remember it, and I will ask it again in the end, but I feel like I want to put it in. So would you think that all of us Jews should go back and become Igbos, or do you think that Igbos should come closer to Judaism? Let's keep it later. Let's keep it later. Now I want to ask you about leadership. So we have so many Igbo people in Nigeria, and many more might or in the process of coming back to Omenana and being part of the Igbo's Jewish community. So who are the leaders of the Igbo? From within and from without? Who are the people who are deciding on the strategy of the Igbo people? And who are the rabbis, activists, or others from outside that involve and influence the destiny of the Igbo people?
Traditionally, and that is theoretically, the people that lead the Igbo people are their elders. Their elders are supported by the priests, and that is traditionally and theoretically when the Igbos had 100% control of their affairs. And but presently, spiritually, religiously, a group has come up, and my peers in that group, that I'm one of its most important, that I'm one of its most active members, gave me the job of being the chief unze. Our job is to gather the people at the moment so that we will give back leadership to the elders. Because due to 33 years of war with the British, colonization, Christianization, our society is struggling. Things are not the way they should be. The Igbos are in the state that the Jewish people found themselves in after the Holocaust. But unfortunately for the Igbos, there has been no help from anywhere. The people have to struggle to mend their society themselves. Even the world was not ready to look at what happened as genocide. Help came from nowhere. So the society is struggling, as I had said once. And in order to get things right, a group identified as Omenana defenders came up, trained people very thoroughly, is training people very thoroughly in Omenana, Judaism, world history, and religions. The job of these people that are trained is to reorganize the people again, heal the people again, so that ultimately the elders of the Igbos will take up their responsibility again of being our leaders. Because the tradition that Omenana gave us is the tradition we see in the Hebrew Bible. Moses would not take a step without summoning the 70 elders of Israel. So we see even the Igbo Jews and their leadership as people just working in the interim to heal the people, reorganize the people again before we go back to that our standard of the elders being the leaders. Thank you.
Good. Now let's move a bit from Nigeria to the US. That's something very interesting you mentioned in our early conversations. How many Igbos immigrated to the US so far? What is their religious and professional and educational status? And then you, as an intellectual researcher who is located in the US at these days, how do you work, how this diaspora of the Igbos in the US actually work it out with the Igbos in Nigeria for the agenda you just presented?
There are two diasporas. One is at the moment 99.9% disconnected from the Igbo people. I'm talking about the people that we are cut off during the slave trade. History tells us that a simple majority of African Americans have Igbo ancestry. 99.9% of them are cut off. So we will do well not to focus on them in this discussion. We will talk about the people who still have very strong links to the Igbo society, to Igbo land and the Igbo community. They still feel Igbo much more than they feel American, because that is the Igbo identity. But they may describe themselves as Igbo Americans. They do not think that they have less connections to Igbo land than the Igbos that are in Igbo land. They travel often to the homeland. And now when we talk about their religion and culture, the subliminal religion is Omenana, which every Igbo lives by. Even if an Igbo describes himself as a Catholic non, there are still aspects of her life that are regulated by Omenana. By the way, Omenana is so wound up in the Igbo, in the everyday living of the Igbos, that they don't even know that when the Igbos do Omenana, they don't even know that it's Omenana they're doing. I'll give you an example. When the COVID came up, and people began to talk about hand washing, it will seem very odd to Igbos, because an average Igbo washes the hand maybe 20 times a day. In America, where I discovered that people eat with their fork and knives, and I observe they don't wash their hands before eating. Bring food before an Igbo, bring a knife and a fork, the Igbo will still demand for water to wash the hands. So the subliminal religion of these Igbos is Omenana. But due to still the same colonial experience, some are connected to Christianity, which is an identity we are trying to look at, to find if it really fits an Igbo, any Igbo at all. So, but to keep it straight and simple, the subliminal religion, the religion that guides them, that tells them what to do, is Omenana. But due to the colonial experience, some are connected to Christianity, and they get troubled by crisis of identity. They think they are Christians, they say they are Igbos. At the end of the day, we have to think outside the box to know exactly what they are.
You did not say the amazing fact of how many Igbos immigrated to the US and what is their educational status, which really surprised me.
I'm surprised. I'm sorry that I missed that. There are up to 3 million Igbos in the US.
3 million?
Yes, there may be up to 3 million Igbos in the US. And what we know from available statistics is that they fall into the class of Americans who are most educated. 59% of them are trained up to PhDs, and in the medical and academic industries, they are overrepresented. When they talk about communities that have done very well in America, you definitely talk about the Igbos. One of America's most engaging economists, Thomas Sowell, was talking about communities that have been persecuted because they have done extremely well. He talked about the Jews, he talked about the Chinese, and he talked about the Igbos.
But where are these 3 million Igbos in relation to Jewish synagogues, whether they are Reform, Conservative, Orthodox? Are they joining the normative Jewish communities, or they creating their own religious life and frameworks and synagogues?
Igbos meet. They should be meeting every week, but because they have so far away from Igbo land, they meet every month as Igbos. And they start with prayers and end with prayers. And even the Christians among them have tried severally to reach out to Jews, that is to the synagogues. But there is a disconnect. It is not difficult for an Igbo to see a Jew as a relation. When an Igbo traditionally sees a Jew, he thinks he's looking at a blood relation. But when a Jew, an Ashkenazi or Sephardic Jew, is looking at Igbo, because the Igbo comes with a dark color, the Jew thinks he's seeing a black. So this has cut Igbos off from the synagogues. Even though Igbos have an idea that Judaism is an offshoot of the Igbo religion, Igbos initially did not see any problem in going towards Judaism, but they were not received. They were not made welcome.
Because my time is getting short, I have to follow civil restrictions. I'm moving to my two last questions to you before we will open it up. So as one of the leaders, what is your vision? What is your agenda for the Igbos for the next 10 years? What about the rumor of creating another Jewish state or Igbo state in what was then Biafra? And what are your expectations from the state of Israel and the rest of the Jewish world, if at all?
My expectation, my desire is for the Igbo people to continue streaming back, returning to Omenana. And if they come back through Judaism, that is welcome. Because one beautiful thing that the adhesion to Judaism has done is that it has forced Igbos to look at the Torah with seriousness. And when they look at the Torah, they rediscover Omenana. And how do I look at the Igbos' relationship with the Jews and the state of Israel? What I want, what I desire is for the Igbos, the Jews and the Israelis and the Jews of the state of Israel to begin to look at each other with more seriousness, more engagement. When they look at their cultures, fortunately, a lot of works have come up. This is one. This is two. This is three. This is four. When the Jews look at this dispassionately, they will no longer see a black people when they see the Igbos. As I mentioned earlier, the Igbo has no problem understanding that the Jew is his sister or his brother. Because in the Igbo community, you'll find people that are light-skinned and people that are dark-skinned. So color never became an issue of identity for us, but it became an issue of identity for the Jews. So when the Jews cross this bridge, learn about the Igbos, and the Igbos learn about the Jews, understand Jewish experiences better too. Because Judaism did not just fall from the air, it came from experiences of the Jews. When these two communities know about each other more, they will begin to find ways of working together for their shared future. Both of them are having one issue, and both of them don't know that the other side is having it, and that is anti-Semitism. According to Professor Walter Isaac, Harvard, Yale trained, formerly of Savannah State University, he said that the Igbos have suffered by anti-Semitism and racism. So I believe that when these two people come together and fight evils like anti-Semitism, they can hope to win. But when they fight singly, they don't go very far. Beyond this, I do not desire anything at the moment. I think that what the Igbos should do is to return to their culture, whether through Judaism or directly to Omenana. And I think that the Igbos and the Jews should come together, know more about each other, begin to engage themselves more for their shared future. This is my aspiration. This is my desire for both peoples and for the Igbos, as I explained earlier.
Great. I have 1,000 more questions. I will ask them, don't worry, I just need some time. But Sybil, I'm turning it back to you and to the session of questions from our participants that can take Remy to all other directions.
But there was just one other question you asked him.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning. Are you
Exactly.
going to ask that? Or
yes, exactly. What I said that if like let's look 100 years from now. Would you think that all of us will become Igbos, or do you think that all Igbos will become Jews? Just to play with our imagination.
If the God of heaven listens to our prayers, grants our prayers, in less than 100 years, every Jew and every Igbo should return to Omenana, because that is what we pray for even in the synagogues. Jews are not praying to return to Rabbinic Judaism. Jews are praying to return to Israel of the time of, well, some people talk about King David. I do not think that that Israel was at its zenith in the time of King David. I think Israel was at its best when it was ruled by God directly under people like Prophet Samuel. When the people went up to God directly, not through any king, not through any Messiah. And what was the religion of the Israelites then? It was Omenana. So my prayer is that every Igbo and every Jew will return to that religion we were given at Mount Sinai. And if it can happen earlier than 100 years, that would be best, because that is the religion that will take not only the people of Israel back to that Garden of Eden, but will take the entire humanity back to the Garden of Eden.
Great. So at this point, Sybil, you can take it from here.
I will indeed. I also have lots of questions to ask you, but I love that sort of vision that we all return together to Chadesh Yameinu Kedem, to renew our days as of old. But my understanding is that Omenana is really rather like halacha. It's the sort of the way we live our lives. But halacha is progressive. It moves on and it changes. And one of the reasons that Rabbinic Judaism is so different now is because of all the radical changes that have come about. At the same time as Rabbinic Judaism, you did have the development of the Karaites, of Karaism, and there are still Karaites in the world today. So, I mean, there is a form of Judaism which does still go back to that biblical ideal, maybe. But Rabbinic Judaism has moved on. And I'm not entirely sure whether it is possible, as it were, to go back. I'm not sure whether it's desirable to go back. We can, we're moving forward all the time. And I just wondered whether there's a similar thing happening within the Igbo culture. Whether that makes it easier for us to actually come together.
There are a lot of issues raised in your question. Moving away from the traditions can also be a way of rejecting the traditions. And when we have moved away, we think that it's always inevitable for us to move away. For example, when we rejected God and chose the kings, if we are not very careful, we will think that it's not desirable to go back to God again. But the question is, our movements, how well have they served us? Have they really served us well? For example, somebody can say that to even abandon the Israelite religion is progression. It's happening. So I think that the most important thing for us to do is to remember where we started, look at our history, look throughout our history, and ask ourselves, since we began to make changes, how well have things gone for us?
That's so interesting.
I know, hopefully at the end of this discussion, people will take up the study of Igbo history very well. Igbos existed in Igbo land for 600 years without a standing army, without a police, without prisons. And Igbo land was more secure than anywhere in the world. Because when we look at the narratives of the Hebrew Bible, we think that the things we read there did not happen, but they happened. The people were able to have total security. By the way, the enemies of the Igbos, the missionaries, wrote down that when they visited the Igbos, when they came into Igbo land, there was not a single destitute. While the people lived exactly the way Moses said they should live. So if we have developed traditions, religious traditions that have served us in exile, we could be thinking that we are in an ideal state. But are we really in an ideal state? Why should we not be thinking of going back to the ideal state?
Can you just clarify what period, that 600-year period of Igbo land, that ended with the missionaries? So can you just put a date to it roughly?
From 1000 to 600. That is just about as the slave rates were starting. Just as about this, the 600 years before the transatlantic slave rates started. Because what really got Igbo society destroyed was the slave trade.
Right.
Under pressure, not even under pressure, due to greed, some Igbos joined the people that were involved in the nefarious activity. Right. And the Igbos have a saying that if one finger is soiled with oil, it stains the others. That's why God was always insistent in the Hebrew Bible, remove the evil from your midst. So Igbos did not remove the evil from their midst, and corruption came in and everything was destroyed.
Yeah, that's okay. So just one more question, then I'm going to hand over to Aviva. Just the slave trade, the end of the video that I showed you a little bit about, saying that the majority of the African Americans are originally Igbo. And that a great many of them now are looking back and are looking towards Judaism as well as looking at Omenana. Is that the case? I mean, does that?
Yeah, a simple majority of African Americans came from Igbo stock, and we notice that Judaism, or majority of those interested in Judaism, prefer to identify themselves as Hebrew Israelites. It's a growing movement in this community. What is inspiring them? What is motivating them to go towards that? I don't think that historians have been very fair to them. Historians have tried to claim that they only want to get rid of slavery, that is why they claim that they are Israelites. I do not think that this answers all the question, because when Olaudah Equiano, an Igbo boy kidnapped at the age of 9, appeared in the New World, met the Jewish people, saw their culture. He said, these people have a culture very much like us, but the confusion now is, why are we dark and why are they fair in complexion? So if there could be one Olaudah Equiano that history captured because he wrote a book, how about others who were not able to write down their thoughts? And how come that at a time that nobody regarded the African as a human being, nobody thought that the black man could think, a single black man rose up and said that the persecuted Jews in Europe should be given the land of Israel, Thomas Blyden. a descendant of slaves 200 years ago. Why would he have that sympathy if there is no connection? And when the whole world abandoned the Igbo people, I'm looking at it from the other angle now. When the whole world saw Auschwitz, all those concentration camps, when the whole world saw them again in Igbo land, when 10,000 Igbos were dying every day and nobody cared, why did a Jewish boy of 24 burn himself alive in protest? Poured gasoline on himself and set himself on fire to draw the world's attention. But history has not done as much as it should do, and we are doing our best to make sure we correct some things. Like when you were talking about the expulsions from Spain and Portugal, Sibyl, you did not talk about the other expulsion. There is one other expulsion that happened the same month. You know where it happened?
No, tell me.
North of Nigeria, Songhai Empire. More Jews were expelled from the Songhai Empire than from Spain and Portugal. Why did it disappear from history?
From where?
Songhai Empire, north of Nigeria. The Askia Muhammad, the emperor, told the Israelites there, leave my domains or convert to Islam. They left.
All right.
And when we even talk about the Jews that left Spain and Portugal, for God's sake, Spain and Portugal, we are Christian. Christians in those lands, we are tormenting the Jews. Why would majority of the Jews not come down to West Africa, which was pagan? Why would they move to Europe? The truth is that majority of them moved to Igbo land. I have Sephardic and Ashkenazi blood in me. My DNA analysis shows that I have close relations in Lithuania and Latvia.
All right. I'm going to pass over to Aviva, because you have some questions, I think, from people.
So I am not going to ask questions as such, but I'm going to bring up people from who had been asking in the chat. I just wanted to say, Remy, that one question we had, but I think you've already articulated the answer to that quite thoroughly, was that someone asked about what the relationship of the Igbo people was to the Torah and the Tanakh, to the Bible. I mean, you very clearly demonstrated how important the Hebrew Bible is to you. Is there the same culture of reading from the Torah or reading from the Bible that there is in Jewish communities, like reading out loud, reading regularly the biblical text?
Well, it depends on how you want to look at it. We did not preserve the text, the written text, but Omenana, which is our everyday life, is we do it. We want everybody to live by it. Every father tells the children, this is what you do. Every mother tells the children, this is what you do. And there are so many warnings that come from not doing them. For example, the Igbos say, Arubaho or Omenana. What does this mean? This means that if you allow evil to subsist in your community for a day, you will begin to think it's Omenana. In other words, the people are being warned to make sure that everything they do is in consonance with Omenana.
Right. Okay, thank you. So let me start bringing up people from our audience who have questions for you, because we have quite a few interesting, quite complex ones actually. So I'm going to start by bringing up Angela Gluck.
Thank you, Aviva. Thank you, Remy.
Thank you, Angela.
I'm very interested in the way in which being Igbo is a religion and whether it's also an ethnic group. So, for example, I'm Jewish. If I wanted, could I become Igbo if I wanted to? Would you accept me?
Nice.
You are already Igbo
Exactly.
because
So,
your father was an Hebrew.
mhm.
Hebrew is the English way of saying Igbo.
Okay.
You are 100% Igbo. There are Igbo parents
Okay.
that told their children, don't marry from outside the Igbos unless they are Jews because they are your brothers.
Okay. So there's a sort of follow-up question. It isn't a different question, really. It is the same thing, which is I've been hearing a distinction between Igbo and Jew. Are they Igbo or are they Jewish? And this is part of my confusion, I think, or part of my concern, because I think the Igbo are Jewish. So why are we talking about Igbo or Jewish? Aren't we talking about a big Jewish family and Igbo is one part of that family? Is that the way to see it?
No. The people of Israel went through so much trauma.
Mm-hmm.
What God told you and me, the people of Israel, is that we are Israel. He did not tell us we are Jews.
Okay. All right.
We assumed the identity Jew when the Persians called the Israelites that we are in exile Jews.
Okay.
And the first person they called a Jew was from Benjamin, Mordecai.
Mm-hmm.
It's not our identity. Our identity are Hebrew or Israelite. And Hebrew means Igbo.
Okay.
At the end of the day,
Okay.
we are all going to refer to ourselves as the children of Israel. That is who we are. We are not Jews.
Okay.
I mean, you too.
Yeah. I get you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Because I want to say this provides a very good opportunity. The engagement I'm praying for is already happening. I want the Igbos and the Jews to engage with each other. It's already happening, and may God bless the people that make this to work.
Right.
The identity Jew has come up with some problems. It has been used to discriminate.
Mm-hmm.
If an Igbo wants to embrace his Jewish brothers and sisters, they will say, no, he's not a Jew. And that's what happens when you leave the original and make up things. It has been used to put people that are a certain color away from the community, or people who are not from a certain part of the world, because it is not one of the original identities. The original identities are Hebrew and Israelite.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm Igbo already.
That is what you are.
Great. Lovely. Thank you, Angela. And Ruth has a question. Ruth.
Hello, thank you very much. It's really, really interesting. This first bit of the question I didn't actually put in the chat, but I'm interested to know how many Igbos there are in the UK and where they might be situated. And at this time when we're looking at trying to look at racism with Jews of colour, what would you like to see happen if there was going to be a project, for instance, I'll take it very, very narrow, what would you see could happen in terms of bringing Igbos and UK Jews together?
Thank you. If both communities come together, and I understand that there are very many prominent Igbos in the UK. One was in the previous government as was in the House of Commons, and one I have forgotten the name. One I have just forgotten the name of this guy. They said he's a Lord Chancellor of something. He is the person that works closest to the Queen. I have forgotten the name of that guy. He's in his 60s. So I believe they're everywhere in the UK, and they hold important positions there. But because of some things I have mentioned in this dialogue, this community is still trying to find its feet. You know, the Jewish people are still going through the traumas of the Holocaust, even though the Jewish people have been able to heal somewhat. But the Igbos passed through a miniature version of it, Biafra. 3 million were murdered, and the persecution did not stop. So you find the Igbos in all parts of the world still very, very much troubled, but that's why you've not felt their influence in a place like the UK. But if the Jewish people come up with a project and we pass the word around, and we put out the word, make sure that people like these two persons I reached out to get to hear about it. And the Jewish people reach out to people. I've forgotten the name of the guy that was in the House of Commons, Omenana.
I'm sure we can find out. I'm sure we could find that information.
Yeah, there was a time the British press was saying, are we looking at a future Obama because of the way he's rising? Yeah. So if the Jewish people put up projects and the leaders of the community like this are informed, Igbo Britons would work with the Jewish people, because as I responded earlier, the Igbo people have no single problem with accepting the Jewish people as their own. It is the Jewish people that have not reciprocated, not because they are bad, but because they don't know.
That's what I'm saying. It's about education and getting to know. So that's what we're beginning to do in my part of the Jewish world. And that's why I'm fascinated to know how we could take it further. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So following on from that question, I'm going to bring Dapo in, who is originally from Nigeria, but he's now in Britain. And I believe, Dapo, are you Igbo? You're going to tell us a little bit. If you unmute yourself, you'll tell us and ask your question. Can you unmute?
Oh, I think I did. Sorry. Some technology challenges here. Yeah, I'm actually in Lagos at the moment. But, yes, the question I wanted to put to Remy was, are you aware of how different the concept of identity is within an African context and within a European or an Ashkenazi context? For other people here, we have a very strong issue in that we feel very sensitive, just as Africans, that a white African should not need a passport, that they can meet us and talk to us and be almost automatically accepted. Wale Soyinka's sister-in-law is actually officially white Jewish, but when she came up to talk to me, I knew immediately that I was talking to an African woman, and I treated her the same way. From the outside, her skin would be white. So the African concept of identity pushes towards far away from what the Europeans would see. So a lot of what you're talking about when you're talking about identity is not actually that clear to Europeans, that there's something that is intangible, that you think that's identity. The person can walk up to me, I don't care what his skin color, and I can tell if he's part of X or not part of X. And yet Europeans' concept of identity is that way. It's not that they're really different, because I've walked down the street. I remember after Passover, I was in a bus and two kids were making jokes about Judaism. And they suddenly stopped and started staring at me and thinking, there's something funny going on. So people can sense that you're part of the community regardless of skin color, whatever. And that's pretty universal, but it's much more ingrained within the African concept of identity. So when you're talking about identity, what I'm going to push to you, are you aware that it's not common currency when Europeans are talking about identity? So when they think you're talking about Jewish identity, it gets translated into a different language. That's my question.
If I got you right, I think I skated around, I hovered around that subject severally. I say that when the Igbos see the Jews see close relations. But when the Jewish people see the Igbos, they see blacks. I don't know if that touches the area you are talking about, because.
Well, I was trying to say, saying the Jews is unfair. I'm saying it's a very European thing.
Huh?
I'm saying it's something that's grown out of European culture, and you're locating it in kind of Ashkenazi Judaism. Or I may not be getting across.
I wasn't really only referring to Ashkenazi Judaism. I was referring to both Sephardic Jews, of course, and this probably should be expected. Judaism became racialized. So if we say who is likely to be a Jew now, everybody thinks it's somebody that is at least Caucasian. I don't know if my responses respond to your question.
Okay. I don't want to hog this. I was trying to actually just say that it's not just what they think. I was trying to say there's something material in the identity. It's not just, even if someone thinks that way, when they actually engage, they should sense some more. But I don't want to hog the conversation, so let's leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Dapo. I've got one last question before I hand back to Malka. And unfortunately, so the question is from Kenneth. We've got two Kenneths actually. This is Kenneth Okafor, and he was on the video till about 5 minutes ago, but he had to leave because he had another Zoom at 7, and he asked to ask on his behalf. So he is British Nigerian. He's British Nigerian Jewish. But he asks, should British Nigerians with Igbo heritage learn about Omenana, even if the parents don't teach them the culture? And if so, how?
Kenneth Okafor. That's the name?
Mm-hmm.
Why not? They should learn about the culture. Because if the parents do not teach them about the culture, but they want to still be Igbo, why would they not learn about Omenana? What is the job of Kabad? When I lived in Abuja, I was friends with the Kabad rabbi. His job was to move around and get Jews who have never prayed in their lives to start praying. So I think that our responsibility is to get everybody knowledgeable about Omenana again.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to bring in Alexander for a last audience question, and then we'll hand back to Malka. But before I bring Alexander in, we've had a few options of people putting messages in the chat to me going, is this who you meant by the Member of Parliament you were talking about? Edgar said, was it Chuka Amuna?
Yes, Chuka Umunna.
Yeah. And Angela also asked if you know about the MP Olukemi Olufunto-Badenoch at all, because she also wondered if she was someone you might know of or
She's Yoruba.
Ah, right, okay, thank you. So it was Chukwuemeka you meant.
Interestingly,
he was my MP. He lived down the road from me.
Interestingly, his family name Omenana is the way the Israelites saw family. Omenana means children of the father. If you go to older translations of the Bible, if Moses is talking about families gathering together, he would say children of the fathers.
So Chuck, when he was still a member of parliament, he was my constituency MP. He was brilliant at interfaith dialogue. He got to know the Jewish community quite well. So there we go, children of the family of the father being lived out. Okay, I'm going to bring Alexandra in for the last audience question, and then we'll go back to Malka. So let me remove myself and, oh, Alexandra, it doesn't want me to let me, here we go. There we go. Over to you.
Is that working?
Yeah, seems to be.
Good. Hi, Remy. Thank you for the talk. I've done quite a lot of work with Jews in a number of states, especially in Onitsha, building contacts with Jews in the UK. I'd like to make a couple of points. Firstly, I don't think that you've fully explained why Jews in other parts of the world have been quite reluctant to engage with Igbo Jews. In my experience, one of the issues is that the Igbo attempts to engage with Jewish communities in other parts of the world, I'm talking about the UK, are actually often quite political in nature more than religious or spiritual. And I'd like to ask you particularly about the role of Nnamdi Kanu in promoting Judaism amongst Igbo people.
You made some observations. You said that you don't think I explained very well why Jews have been reluctant to engage with Igbos.
Yes.
Are you familiar with what I'm going to say now? About 18 years ago, 100 Igbos went to Israel, converted legally to Orthodox Judaism, and Israel deported them. Ultra-Orthodox Judaism under a legitimate Bedin, not just Judaism, but ultra-Orthodox. And Israel deported them, forcing some Jews in America to write that the state of Israel should send 4 ministers to Igbo land, to go to Igbo land, apologize to all the synagogues, apologize to the Igbo people, and fly back those 100 persons to Israel as heroes of Zion. Nobody listened. And if Russians who cannot prove any connection to Judaism or to Israel became Israeli citizens, and the Igbos who became Orthodox Jews and accordingly no longer Igbos but Jews were rejected, I think my position that color is the issue matters. Then you talked about Nnamdi Kanu's. Can you repeat the question around him again?
The question simply was, can you say something about the role of Nnamdi Kanu in the promotion of Judaism amongst Igbo people?
I know that I have been involved in Igbo Judaism for 20 years now. So what I would say to that is, if you go through the records, I think the person that you will find that has promoted Judaism most, you would find my name in the records. And you will say as well that when Nnamdi Kanu identified as Jewish, more people also heard about Judaism. That is the most I can say about that.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, would you agree that the question of Igbo Jews is currently heavily intertwined with politics?
I wouldn't say, I would, these questions cannot have a yes or no answer, in the sense that the Jewish movement has existed for a very long time and it had nothing to do with politics. So I think they can still be separated.
I just mean for Alexandra, just so that we're clear for everyone listening, I presume you're referring to the questions around Biafra.
That's correct.
So I just wanted to clarify for the audience to make sure that everyone is on the same page, that my presumption is that Alexandra is referring to the current questions around Biafra and the involvement of the, or non-involvement of the Igbo Jewish community in the Biafran movement question.
You know that historically the people have referred to the Igbos as the Jews of Africa. For so many years now, like when the conflict over Biafra was raging, people were, Kissinger referred to the Igbos as Jews of Biafra. So what I'm saying is that, yes, it's possible that some people could think that the two are linked, but on closer examination, you will see that there is no linkage.
I think we need some honesty here. Ojukwu looked for support from white South Africa. He looked for support from Israel in the fight. That's when the big issue came up. And he was quite nakedly political about it. The concept of Biafra includes a whole variety of ethnic groups that have nothing to do with Igbos, and it's not viable. So, you know, I was trying to be friendly, but you're not being honest. So I have no problem with Ibu's claim to Judaism, but behind it is some pretty viciously anti-African statements where you're saying things like, they're the Jews of Africa, they're the brightest. These are untrue statements. There are lots of bright people in Africa. The Jews are not the brightest. They're not, you know, the leading.
Oh, Dapo, you've just muted yourself.
Oh, sorry. But they are among the leaders, but I think you've got to be a bit more honest. There's nothing wrong with your claim to be Jewish, but it doesn't mean you have to be negative about other Africans.
I want to respond to that. I do not think that you are representing me with any kind of honesty by inferring that I have been disrespectful to Africans. G.T. Basden wrote 2 books nearly 100 years ago, and he said that the Igbos, he compared the Igbo traditions and the Israelite traditions and came up with the conclusion that the similarities cannot be looked away from. Then there are books that are 600 years now that refer to the Igbo people as that say that the Igbo people have Israelite traditions. And the everyday life of the Igbos demonstrate that the life is the life of the biblical Israelites. I do not know if this is the one you take exception to, because I did not see where I disrespected Africans, and Ojukwu came up in Biafra of the 50s. We have books, so many books written by friendly people and non-friendly people that refer to the Igbo people as Israelites. We have books written in the 1600s that say that on the banks of the river Niger are to be found descendants of the Israelites. So what is untrue? What is untrue?
There's quite a lot. There's quite a lot untrue. There's quite a few other African communities in cross-West Africa call themselves Israelites. That's nothing to take away from you, but making yourself unique, and also historically, tracing it back, there are quite a lot of connections that go back, and they go quite a long way back. So that the presentation, which is okay as long as you stayed where you were.
Okay,
but once
Dapo, I'm going to have to stop you
Sure,
there
that's
because we
fine.
are coming to the end.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I
I
didn't mean to, but
get
I
your
didn't
point.
mean
I
to,
hope,
but he asked me back.
I hope, yeah,
I
I
didn't
hope
mean
that what has come out of this whole series is that there are so many different African groups that claim a heritage that goes back to ancient Israel. The Igbo are one of those, and what we have tried to do in this series is to show how different they all are. Sadly, we've only had 7 weeks. We cannot actually approach every community. So we have had to take examples. And of course, by taking one person, we have one person's view. But I hope that what we're doing is opening up the discussion and opening up our eyes as Western, mainly Ashkenazi, to the fact that there's a whole world out there of which until very recently we were completely unaware. We're concluding next week with our last talk in this series.
I have my 3 minutes.
You have, oh right, you have your 3 minutes.
Okay, it will be 2.
Okay.
So let me conclude my part with 3 very brief comments just to conclude this meeting with Remy IIona about the Igbos. 1, the whole issue of Igbos and Israel and Igbos in Israel is still an enigma. That we don't have the time to talk about it, but I'm involved with this issue for many, many years. And this is an issue that is part of a larger issue in the discussion about Jewish communities in Africa. There is a word in Hebrew, but I don't know the word in English. It's called schorophobia. Just for you to think and discuss, that means the fear of blackness. More specifically, the anxiety that exists within Israel, that Israel might change demographically because of foreign illegal workers, as well as the issue that raised of Jewish communities in Africa. So that's a crucial issue to think about, to discuss, and to understand. The second point, there are all kinds of, how do you say, there is a virtual task force. For example, the very new collaboration between Sybil and I, my newly teaching of seminar on Judaism in Africa and Israel. We are many, many people all over the world that want to change the discourse and life within the diverse Jewish world. So far, we all work more or less separately. Different organizations in the US, initiatives in the UK and other places, and initiatives in Israel, a lot, which you don't know about. What I'm saying that there is not yet an international agenda, and it might be developed, hopefully in the next conference in Los Angeles, in the Jewish University, that will bring together different people from communities, from decision makers, and so on. So that's the emphasis. And the very last one, I would say, I think that every person in his own territory, whether it's a synagogue, school, youth movement, government officials, and so on, can do every day one small step towards this big mission. And there is a lot going on. We need to know more about each other, and we need to move forward in a more general collaborative agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malka. I'm sorry I cut you off earlier.
Okay.
Thank you, Remy, for
Thank you.
Fascinating talk. I think you certainly have opened our eyes. I say next week we meet for the last time when we are going to be meeting Rabbi Gershon Sizomo of the Abayudaya community in Uganda. Here we are moving from a very ancient community to a very new one, one that's about 100 years old. So we look forward to seeing you all then next week. Have a good week.
Good night.